Hey, I'm Dr. Donna Ferguson, and I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I want to talk a little bit about ADHD because I recently gave a talk to a school, and the feedback I got was more, more, more. And I thought, wow, I already talked for an hour and a half, and if I kept talking for several more hours about ADHD, I would probably get a little hungry, and I might even have to go to the bathroom. And so rather than having to talk to one school for 4 hours about ADHD, I thought it might be a good idea to try to do a couple of videos that are much shorter and also cover some of the same material that I would have gotten to had I been able to give a 4-hour talk. So the first thing I want to talk about is, why is talking about ADHD important? Why would I bother to sit on my bathroom floor and make a video of myself talking about it? Because God knows I don't like making videos of myself, and I don't even really like sitting on my bathroom floor. It's just the quietest place in my house, which now I understand why people sit in their cars. At first I didn't. For a long time I was like, why is everybody sitting in their car? And then over time I started to realize, oh, it's quiet and there are no kids in their car. And so, okay, that made sense. But I thought, well, instead of doing a car video, since I am actually a professional, I will sit on my bathroom floor because that makes so much more sense. Anyway, back to the topic of ADHD, why I think it's so important, is that I think ADHD is completely misunderstood. And in my almost 20 years or so of practicing psychiatry, I believe it's the most misunderstood diagnosis that I have encountered. So I think most of us think of ADHD as a little hyper kid who annoys us or who annoys his teachers and who gets into a lot of trouble. What I want to do is break that mold of what we think about and or break that mental image of what we think about as someone who might have ADHD and expand that, because what I do notice is that so often the root of problems when people come to me with anxiety or depression, the root of their problems is so often ADHD. So, yes, there are clinical checklists, and yes, those things are important, but I want to give you a little snapshot of some other scenarios of people who might have ADHD and why do we care. So the quiet little girl in class who doesn't speak up, who never answers questions, and who maybe doesn't seem on task, but we really don't know because we're not in her brain, and she's quiet and she's still, she may also have ADHD. She may be inattentive and has no idea what the teacher's talking about, so she's not dare going to raise her hand. We also have lots of adults who are walking around with ADHD. Hint, hint, often parents of kids who have ADHD. So if your child is diagnosed with ADHD, either look at yourself or look at your spouse or maybe whoever you adopted your kid from, because genetically we know that there is a high genetic predisposition for ADHD. So it is pretty prevalent, and a lot of people will say, oh, I think it's way overdiagnosed, and I say to them, yeah, it might be in some cases, and then in other cases I think it might be way underdiagnosed. So it's a person-specific issue. It's not an issue that I'm going to make some broad sweeping comment about it being over or underdiagnosed, but I do think that it's important that if you do have it, that you have it addressed appropriately, because if you don't, what we do know is that people who aren't appropriately treated have a higher risk for drug and alcohol dependence, because they know something's wrong and can't maybe quite hold a job down or can't hold a relationship down because they are inattentive and because maybe they don't turn in their paperwork on time. So people have a lot of life issues and dysfunction related to ADHD that can then spill over and cause other issues, other problems. So drugs and alcohol can become a problem. People are nervous about stimulants sometimes because they say, oh, those are addictive medicines. I don't want my kid on those, or I don't want to take those. And yes, there is some addictive potential in some of the medicine. Well, I guess in all of them really, if you boil it down. But there have been a lot of new medicines come out recently that that limit the addictive potential because they're much longer acting, or the way that they're delivered in the body has a much lower addictive potential built in. So I really hope to minimize some of the fear associated with a diagnosis or labeling of ADHD. I hear that often too. I don't want to be labeled as ADHD. I'm like, well, who cares what your labels are? You have it already. It'd probably be better just to call it what it is and treat it appropriately than be in denial of it your whole life and then look for other ways to manage it. So that's why I think ADHD is important. It's important because it does affect the person who has it, whether they know they have it or not. So it is important to explore whether you might have it or not, and whether your coping skills have been appropriate or whether they are perhaps maladaptive. Don't know if that makes sense. And we can look at how to diagnose it and what to do about it in later videos. I just wanted to see if this initial video about why I think it's important sparks some interest, and if people want to see more. And if so, I'll sit on my bathroom floor again and we can go through this again, and we can continue to open up topics about it based on interest and based on maybe questions you have. So I would love to see what kind of feedback we get, and we'll go from there. Thanks. All right, bye.